mom and dad look like a king and queen. Like, I am a huge Disney fanatic. I love Disney. Every single Disney princess movie, call it my favorite.
A whole new world, a dazzling place.
Why, but you're dying to try. You wanna kiss the girl.
Did you hear something?
Yes, you want her.
And so when I thought about royalty, my mom and my dad have this presence that is just so captivating. My mom, I call her Pocahontas. She's literally cinnamon skin colored, long black hair, beautiful body. And then my dad, he is also my stepdad, to like preface this, because we look nothing alike. Okay. He is 6'2", very dark skin, Puerto Rican, and they just looked so stunning together. And then they were like friends. My mom and dad used to sit on the couch and like cuddle together and like play games, and it was this young, exuberant relationship that was just filled with so much love. And then as I got older, I learned about all of the angst, the trials, the tribulations that they've been through. And for them to still be together 30 years later and like genuinely happy to be together, it's just something so beautiful to me.
But you're who you are, even though the price you pay for it is being disinvited from the rest of the world. I'm the one playing dress up. Is it wrong to want to be with one of the few people in the world who isn't?
I was surrounded by a group of people who were very young still, and so I was growing up with them also. But transitioning to me has always been, I've always been Chloe. It's always been apparent. And one of the reasons that my family is so unconventional is actually because they saw it, they knew it, they acknowledged it, and they let it rock. You know, my mom, for the most part when I was at home, she would let me be whoever I wanted to be. And it was always either Ariel or Jasmine, or it was
I see Jasmine.
Wow. My mom would just let me do whatever. If it was that I wanted to wear a gown, or I was maybe 4 years old, but I remember my mom was getting ready to go out to a nightclub actually with my uncles and her friends. And she was putting on her signature red lipstick, because I also thought in the 90s that my mom looked just like Selena. She had the bangs, the long black hair. I was like, my mom is Selena. So she was putting on her red lipstick, and I was on the edge of the bed, literally like, and gawking at her. And she turned around and she was like, "Do you want to try some on?" And when I said yes, it was like without any hesitation. She just put on the lipstick. She was like, "You look so pretty, look at yourself." And it was that way until I reached teenagehood. So my transition journey is a little bit different also, medically. My body at some point was itself confused, and so I was producing both estrogen and testosterone at very high levels simultaneously. So I went through a very early onset puberty. And I hadn't noticed because I went to Puerto Rico for the summer. My sister was 3 years old, and everyone else that I was hanging out with was younger than I was. But when I came back and I started middle school, I noticed that I was taller than every other boy in my class. And like all of the girls actually were all taller than all of the boys in the class. And it was the first like pang that it hit me that I didn't grow breasts. And it's so funny because I didn't know what it meant to be transgender then. And in fact, I didn't even know what it meant to be transgender. I didn't even have a word for it until I was 23. So I didn't know what this like feeling was, but it was that first time that I felt really different from the rest of my female clan, where it was just no longer apparent that we were the same. Because before that, all kids kind of looked the same. And in the 90s, everyone dressed very similarly, kind of baggy, tomboyish. And so it wasn't like a big thing. And when all of my friends then started wearing like spaghetti straps and cute jeans, and I was just like, okay, well, my parents are never going to understand this. And so we fast forward to 2003. We were living in Florida at the time, but came to New York for summer vacation. And I had really long hair. And everyone was on my case about having long hair and the fact that I always wore it down and it was always flowing in the wind and that was not a masculine trait. And I cut off all of my hair. And it was because I had it in cornrows. One of my friends was just practicing, so it wasn't like a real hairstyle. And I took them out, and my uncle had started in on his like, oh my gosh, here we go again. You with all of this like feminine stuff. And my mom, as wonderful as she is very short-fused. And sometimes her aggression is kind of sort of deflected onto the wrong person, because instead of telling him to shut up, what she turned around and said was, why did you take off those braids? And I was just like, my hair was dirty, like, it wasn't a style, I don't even like cornrows. And she was like, why can't you just be normal? Like, one day, just be normal. For 13 years, I've dealt with you, like, doing all of these things, and I've allowed you to do all of these things, but can't you just have one day where you're normal? And that stuck with me for a very long time, because even then when we moved back to New York, at the time in Florida, I was dressing basically like anyone on MTV and BET. FUBU, Shanjan, Air Force Ones, like that was my thing. Trying to, as best as possible, embody this masculine energy that people kept telling me that I had to embody. And when I moved back to New York, our school had a uniform. The first thing that I told my mom was, I don't want a baggy uniform, and I don't want to wear sneakers. So my mom was like, yeah, I know that you've never liked any of that clothes. So she took me to Zara, and immediately we went to the men's department, and she was like, I know you don't want to shop here either. So we went up to the women's department, and that was where I got my first item of like women's clothing that belonged to me that did not belong to her. My transition started first through my appearance, and it took many years to get there. In high school, I was high-waisted white leg girl with like loafers and a very fitted button down. And then after that, I became a little bit more hippie, more boho. And then finally...
Sorry, boho?
Yeah, like boho chic. So like silk shirts that were kind of sort of like unbuttoned with belted skinny jeans, wavy hair, trying to look effortlessly gorgeous, but like also it took a lot of work. But finally in 2013, I'm a big YouTube watcher, and there was this person, her name is Gigi Gorgeous.
Oh, hi. Welcome back to my channel. So recently, I was thinking, I've come a long way, and my journey has...
And she started out her channel as Gregory Gorgeous.
I would never think that I would be doing any of this. I just realized that it doesn't fucking matter what anyone says. Doing hair, dressing up, being a diva, it's totally me. I can't hide that. I can't suppress that. I need to show it.
And I saw just how powerful she was. Just how she didn't care about what anyone thought. Before she started transitioning, she would wear her dresses and her high heels and her makeup and her jewelry, and she just didn't care. And it was the first person, the first role model that I actually saw myself in. I'd met other trans women prior to seeing Gigi Gorgeous, but they were, regrettably to say, because that was then, and thankfully we've made so much progression now, but they were ladies of the night. They were ladies that, I used to go nightclubbing when I was 14 with my mom and my uncle. Like, I went to some of the best nightclubs in New York City at the age of 14. And so there were a lot of trans women at these nightclubs, but they were, again, ladies of the night. High-end escorts, very overly done, and to me, I understand...
Deserves to live and deserves to be treated with respect and equality just as well as everyone else.
Do you get a hard time sometimes?
I do, very much.
What kind of stuff have you?
I'll be walking down the street and somebody will be like, that's a boy, or that's a man, and I'm glad that they can understand that. I'm glad that they can see that. But a regular man usually doesn't pay attention to us unless that's what he's attracted to. Mm-hmm. So a grown man usually keeps his mouth shut and minds his own business, worried about him and his wife and his kids, instead of worrying about another man or another transgender.
The ones who get upset by it are the ones who...
Yeah, who really want it and who secretly want to take me around the corner, who do. It's amazing. I'll be walking down the street, and out of a whole group of 5 guys, there'll be 2 guys to sit there and be talking shit about me. And really, other guys aren't saying nothing. They're just looking because they're noticing what he's saying.
You're fun to look at.
Right, or whatever the case may be. And I mean, I've been...
But to me, it just looked like a caricature at the time. And I didn't want to be associated with a caricature because I've always thought of myself as someone who's sophisticated and intelligent and, you know, not just like this thing to look at, which is essentially what I felt like they were. And my opinion of that has also changed because I now understand that the era that they were growing up in did not allow for the kind of transitioning and the kind of safety that we have now to do the things that we do. The science, the technology, just the knowledge, the understanding of what it means to be trans. Now it's vastly different than it was in the 90s, 80s, and so on and so forth. So I saw her, and then she made a video finally transitioning, and it all clicked.
Something that follows you, and you need to just deal with it yourself because it's your soul that's speaking.
Born Gregory Lazzarato, Gigi identified herself as a gay male throughout grammar and high school. Her parents and 2 brothers gave their full support.
I had a very, very good upbringing. The love was there, my family was there, no divorces, no nothing like crazy like that. They definitely did not make me feel anything but an amazing person for coming out as that. Even though that's not what I was, they were like, okay.
It was the first time that I had a word, a definition, a person that I could identify with, that I actually felt like was me. That was the same person, someone strong and powerful and intelligent and a businesswoman and free and just like a woman, just a normal woman that you would see walking down the street. And it was just so empowering. So I brought that video to my then boyfriend, and the first thing that he told me was, "What is the circus freak?" And it threw me right back into the closet for another 3 years. Because if my partner, who'd also only ever been with women until they met me, could not accept me, then I felt like no one ever would. And that included my mom, who at that point had asked me many times, like, what's the deal? In her, like, very unconventional way, because it didn't feel, like, safe to tell her, like, this is what's happening. But also knowing my mom and how resilient and just how, like, forward-thinking she is, I should have known that she was asking because she already knew and just wanted confirmation for me to live a life that made me happy, because that's literally when I actually came out to my mom and told her that this was happening. That was all she told me. She was like, is this going to make you happy? And I said, it's the happiest that I've ever been, just giving you my name. And she said, then I'm so happy, baby. That's like all I want. And so that relationship was also just very abusive. It was emotional, physical, like everything that you can think about. And in 2016, when I decided to transition, I had also decided to end my life with him because the woman that I was about to become was someone who was strong and powerful. And I was not going to allow that kind of chaos to enter my new chapter of life. And finally, something that I'd been working so hard, it was just such an internal battle. And so I'd made this decision, and I was not going to bring that kind of chaos into it. And I have to say that since I transitioned, my life has changed so drastically. It's like the doors of heaven have opened up for me, honestly. It's like night and day in terms of what I feel like inside, exteriorly, what I can offer someone, how well I know myself at this point, because it's been many years of therapy and psychiatry and all kinds of self-discovery and journeys and changes, and I just couldn't be more thankful. Transitioning, I'm not going to say that transitioning saved my life, because I can't say that I was suicidal beforehand because I was in the incorrect body, but I can say that transitioning saved my life in a way that is just so profound, because it gave me the strength to do all of the things that I've never thought that I was strong enough to do. So my mom actually named me before I had even started transitioning. I was surprising her for her, it was 36th birthday. I was taking her to Mexico that year. So I was surprising her, and so I took her to our favorite Mexican restaurant, being all in theme. And I stood up to go to the bathroom. There was a gentleman who had been looking at me from the bar the entire time, and he took the opportunity to come and like speak to me. And when he realized that, actually he asked me for my name, and I gave him obviously my former name because I didn't have another name. He was like, "Oh my God, I thought that you were a girl." And I was like, at the time, obviously I was like, no. So I come back to the table and I'm like giggling to myself, and my mom was like, "What's up with you?" And I tell her the story, and she like takes a sip of her strawberry margarita, and she's like, "Have you ever thought about it?" I know I've asked you this question a few times, and I was just like, no. We're at the restaurant, and she's like, "Have you ever thought about it?" And I said, "No." And she takes another sip of a margarita, and she goes, "If you ever decide that this is something that you'd like to do, I want your name to be Chloe." And I was just like, "Why Chloe?" And she was like, "Well, it's close enough to your birth name that you don't have to change your signature, because my signature is like a big CH and then a little squiggle and then Vidal." And she goes, "But when I think of a woman whose name is Chloe, I think of a woman who's sophisticated and intelligent and like so chic, and like you remind me of all of those things."
Not Khloe Kardashian, though.
No, not Khloe Kardashian. Yeah. She's even spelled it in like the more traditional way, the CH, very French, Chloe. Chloe. Je m'appelle Chloe, et toi? But Halloween, so that was October. I'd invited her out with some of my colleagues to a bar called Maine in Puerto Rico, and I actually already spoke to my friend at the time and also colleague and office mate. She was the first person that I came out to, and the way that I came out to her was that I got my nails done for the first time. I got acrylics, and they were like super long, and she was like, "Well, this is a different look." And I was just like, yeah, like start to get used to it. And then I wrote on a little post-it note like, "Hi, my name is Chloe," and I put it like on my chest, and I turned around. And she was like, "Hi, my name is Chloe. You're changing your name?" And I was like, "Well, it's not just my name. It's a little bit deeper than that." But she was like, for me, my transition story, in comparison to many other women, has been very simple. Easy, streamlined. I had a lot of support from my colleagues. I had a lot of support from my family. I had a lot of support from my friends. I've had ample opportunities to date and be taken seriously, because I'm not someone who ever has allowed a man to fetishize or think that I'm some kind of experiment. And even if that kind of language comes up, it's okay to ask questions, because I understand that not every man has been with a trans woman or understands what being trans is. But you can definitely see the distinctions between someone who is asking you to gain knowledge and someone who's asking you simply because you are now an experiment and they want to have fun with you. transitioning has actually made me believe in like miracles. And transitioning, even though I don't necessarily believe in God in the way that a Bible talks about it. I am very spiritual. I believe in energies. I believe that you attract what you put out. But transitioning has literally made me believe in miracles again, because it's just that everything, I'm so overwhelmingly thankful for this journey. And I'm also just overwhelmingly thankful that society, as terrible as that sounds, because I would love to think that I've grown out of that little teenage girl who needed to be socially accepted. But I'm also glad that society has accepted me as the female that I am, and that I haven't had to face some of the hardships that I know that some of my other trans sisters have definitely had to face. It's, you know, and I hope that someday all of this is just equal, but if at the very least, I hope that someday I've made it somewhere big enough, that I have a big enough platform, that I'm able to continue to move our community forward. And I feel like the media currently has done such
We're looking for a cultural shift, that we're actually a part of the fabric of everyday communities. We are not just settling for crumbs, that we're not just settling for policy wins and bathroom accommodations, but actually for everyone to really understand gender and
things as people, people that are not just coming from abusive backgrounds, thrown out of the house. We are now mothers and lawyers and doctors and girlfriends and friends and sisters, and it's like this huge media shift that is just so beautiful, because if we think about it, at some point blackface was appropriate. Mm-hmm. And what it made was a African American or an African person or a person of color look like a character.
Quiet, people! Cotton Watts and Chick! Lady, let that be a lesson to you.
What's the matter with you boys shooting up that man's hen house?
I'll shoot any chicken trying to follow me home.
Well, why don't you get a job and go to work?
You almost had me a job this morning.
Where?
So we were a joke. And it was the same thing with trans women, that we've been the butt of the joke.
LeBron James changed his gender. You know what I mean? Okay, can he stay in the NBA, or, because he's a woman, does he have to go to the WNBA, where he will score 840 points a game?
Many decades, we've been the prostitutes on all kinds of movies. We've ended up dead in alleys. We ended up in a river, in a suitcase. And that was all you saw of trans representation until maybe like 3 years ago. Where finally, or actually Orange is the New Black, but even Laverne Cox is playing someone who's incarcerated.
My dosage. I've given 5 years, $80,000 in my freedom for this. I'm finally who I'm supposed to be. Do you understand? I can't go back.
But she was actually one of the first characters that really gave light to people being just a human being.
The details of my medical transition, because historically, when folks have talked with and about trans folks almost always exclusively focus on transition, surgery, what procedures did you have? And I fundamentally feel that those kinds of conversations objectify trans people. And we have begun to insist that our identities, that ourselves exist beyond our bodies, beyond surgery, beyond genitalia. I've had to medically transition so that the world can see my spirit.
The message surrounding trans people has been overwhelmingly more positive. We are all of the same things that our cis brothers and sisters are, and that is powerful to show the generations that are coming after us, but also the generations that came before us, that we are just people. And the way that we identify or our gender really does not change the human aspect of every single human. It is the one link that we all have in common, no matter of genetics, no matter of where you come from, no matter of your DNA. We are all human. We are all the similar species. And therefore, as humans, there is just this basic unity that we should all eventually have. And hopefully the world is like moving towards that space. Important, and it scares me that in the United States of America, there are still states like Kentucky, for instance, where you cannot have your birth certificate amended. And so you always have that derogatory mark, essentially, that sets you apart from who it is that you are. And then allows or opens the door for there to be some kind of discrimination somewhere along the line, especially if you're not living in a very big metropolitan city. Yeah. So like even Gigi Gorgeous.
Hi guys, so I have a story for you. That's a real-time story because I'm still in it. I was denied entry into Dubai because I am transgender, and it absolutely disgusts me that this kind of discrimination still goes on. But I just wanted to tell you what I've literally just gone through just because I'm transgender.
They did not allow her into the country. And so we think, or many people don't even think about how important documentation just alone is for a transgender person, how accurate representation on a piece of paper can mean the difference between being able to live a justifiable life where you are able to pay rent and do things that all of your other counterparts are doing, or in the streets, in shelters, turned away by everyone. And so I had sex reassignment surgery, so my vaginoplasty. And that was a Christmas miracle, literally. I was actually scheduled for surgery for 2019 in February. And just a few weeks before Christmas, they called me to ask if I was ready to do this early, because someone had literally just canceled. And I'd become, not friends, but I'm a very friendly person, I'd like to think. So I'd go into that office, and it was an excitement for me because I knew that I was going to be making a dream come true. So I talk up a storm with everyone. And Elsa, who was the coordinator for Dr. Ting, who performed my surgery, she really took a liking to me. So as soon as this person canceled, she was like, "You were the first person that came to mind." And I was like, "Sign me up." So December 18th of 2018, I had my vaginoplasty, and it was the miracle on 110th Street because I was just so happy. And then shortly after, I was scheduled for another surgery, so I had some facial work done. And that again was not scheduled until later in the year, and they called me and were like, "Hey, are you ready for early surgery again?" And I was just like, yes. And so with that, my medical transition has ended, although I do have to continue to do my hormone therapy, especially now that I'm no longer producing anything else other than estrogen for the most part. But it's just been like a whirlwind, and it's been this like fantastic storm. I told you earlier that I come from a very unconventional Dominican family, because in most Dominican families, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're always a child. And in my family, it's always been different. Every relationship continues to evolve as time evolves. So I told you when I was 14, I used to go nightclubbing with my mom and my uncle.
Wow.
And literally, like, I'm talking about nightclubbing where, like, I was dancing, drinking responsibly, because, like, they would limit my drinking, but their whole, like, thing was, we don't want you to go do these things with your friends who are going to teach you, I don't know what they're going to teach you. It was a controlled setting where I could have the nightclub experience and feel like an adult But there were no drugs introduced. Men were not allowed to come talk to me. And when a man was coming to talk to me, my uncle would be like, why are you taking that drink, for instance? Did he come with that drink already? And so I learned many life lessons through that. But also it was just a bonding experience that they knew that eventually I was going to be a wild adult. And instead, actually, what they did was the opposite, that I had nightclubbed out from 14 to like 20. That was another thing about their relationship that I love so much. My mom was the head. She was the visionary. She was the person who would come up with the plan of how we were going to make the fortune. And my dad was the executor, and they were a fantastic dynamic duo. And so, meanwhile, my mom took care of us and was able to nurture us a little bit more. Just very connected. We are all best friends. I talk to my mom and my dad basically every single day, even if just for 10 minutes, 5 minutes. But for the most part, especially with my mom, like, we'll be on FaceTime for hours. And I don't quite know how it is that we keep a conversation going for so long, because literally we just talked the day before, but every day we find new topics to talk about for the hour or more that we are on FaceTime. Parents now, and for a while, have recognized that I am an adult. I had to tell my mom that, I think when I was 25, we had a discussion and she was being very authoritative with how she was speaking to me. And I cut her off and I said, no. I am an adult that has lived on my own since I was 18. And so at this point, you can offer me a piece of advice as my friend, as my mother, but you cannot tell me what to do anymore. And my mom literally was just like, you know what, it's true. It's true, Chloe. And she like backed down. And since then, like, our relationship has only gotten better because now my parents and I have an adult relationship, but also an adult friendship. And friendship is the glue to all love. You need to be friends in all love circumstances, instances, for it to work. A date with someone else. And it was in New Jersey. And so I was coming from the Bronx where I used to work, and I was in 42nd Street. Now, mind you, my now ex-boyfriend works and lives in New Jersey. Never, ever, ever in the city, and never in a train station. And in the middle of 42nd Street, on the train, like not even platform, if you know, I was walking over from the A train, so from the blue line, and you have to walk through that long tunnel. You pass by the 7, the N, the QR, the 1. In that long tunnel, in the middle of rush hour, it is 5:30 p.m. It is rush hour in New York City. I seen this little man, because my ex-boyfriend is 5'8", so it's not even like a relationship. You always have to remember, I guess, communication, patience, understanding, but also being friends with one another. Because if you're not friends, then things just start to crumble. Love is sometimes just not enough. You can love someone to absolute pieces, and the idea of them not being in your life is the most catastrophic and devastating thing that you could ever imagine, but sometimes love is just not enough. Wait, in the middle of a crowd, and I am someone who is so oblivious sometimes to my surroundings, especially on the train. Pop on my ear pods, and I don't know anything. I cannot hear anyone. I do not look at people because it gives me kind of sort of anxiety. And it's that thing that when you look at someone, then they look at you, and now you start to wonder, like, why are they looking at me? And it's literally because you looked at them. But so I don't look at anyone, and for me to have noticed him, and that was that serendipitous moment that I was talking about, that I was going on a date with someone else, and then I saw him at the train station. I was just like, okay. So this whole date that I had with this person materialized into nothing, because while this person was talking to me and trying to get to know me, I literally could not get it out of my mind that I saw this guy in 42nd Street, in the middle of a crowd, in the middle of rush hour, on the most random day. And so I hit him up the next day. And I texted him and I was just like, hey, I lied. And I was like, I think I saw you on the train yesterday at 42nd Street. Just passing by to say hello. And he texted me a screenshot because he just texted me the day before just to ask me how I was. Not because he also saw me, but just because apparently I came through his mind and he just wanted to know how I was because it'd been like 2 or 3 months since we'd spoken at that point. And that was that serendipitous moment that I was just like, the world is telling me something. And I fully went with it. And our love was real, and it was raw, and it was honest, and it was whole, and it was tumultuous at certain points. But I'm, honestly, I would just not take a single second of it back. Can I have one more?
No. Do you feel that you could love again?
I think love is unique, and every relationship has a different kind of love. I don't know at current time if I'm ever going to be able to love like I did now. It's just that this love was just so special to me in terms of how I felt inside. And it was just such a unique feeling, it was different, it was beautiful. It was consuming. It was fairy tale almost, honestly. And I don't know that that feeling could ever be replicated with anyone else because obviously, like I said, love is unique and every love is different. And so I'm just not willing to settle for anything less now. And if I can't ever find a love that makes me, that replicates it, but not replicates it in an imitation kind of way, but replicates it in that I feel that wholeness again, that overwhelming like feeling towards someone. I don't know. Love. Love is patience and understanding. Love is communication. Love is this overwhelmingly beautiful feeling. And it is so unique and it should be cherished so much. Because although there is a lot of love out there in the world, when someone gives you their love, it should be something just so special. And quite honestly, and lastly, I think that love is just the greatest gift that was ever bestowed upon humanity. Love is just something so beautiful, and if you've never experienced it, which it's hard to not experience love in some capacity, because love also comes in many forms. It's not just a relationship, it can be many things. But it should just be something that is so cherished. Because when that love leaves, it just can never be replaced. Because it was that unique. And that is what love is. To quote. Okay. So, what is Love documentary? That's a wrap. Love is... And that's where I have to think. All parents. that as your child starts to evolve, that you remind them that you are their friend, so that they never think like, you're not going to understand, or you didn't go through this. Talk to them about your heartbreaks. What is love? That's a wrap. And love is the most beautiful thing you'll ever experience.
Lord, we don't need another mountain.